Hello, all. Welcome back to the Brighter Black Futures podcast. I'm your host, Bisa, and I'm here today with another great episode. And if you've been following along, you know that last episode I ended my deep dive into Black history. So today we're switching gears entirely and turning our focus to a new topic. And what is that topic, you might ask? Well, today what I want to focus on is something I've been hearing a lot about from my friends and family who have kids. They're talking about the fact that their kids are really anxious and asking a lot of questions since the US election happened, because as you know, this is kind of a divisive moment in history, not just in the US, but around the world. And even if it isn't happening around the world, what happens in the US impacts all of us in the rest of the world. I think, especially here in Canada, because we're so close to them. And kids are wondering how someone with a criminal record can be elected and all the things that, that party that one stands for, as far as I'm going to say being a little less tolerant of difference than we'd like, has a lot of kids who are part of marginalized communities or who have some kind of difference that makes them stand out in the world feel nervous. And even kids who love people from those kind of communities wondering, hey, what's going to happen to the people I love if this is the energy that's in the world. So today, what I'm going to do is share some tips that I've gathered to help you support your children and maybe even yourselves. So today is all about sharing some tips that you can use to support your kids and maybe even yourselves, so you can feel better and go back out in the world with hopefully feeling more grounded and clear and ready to do what you need to make sure you get through whatever comes next based on current events. So with that said, and without further ado, let's get into it. Now, it's time for the upliftment segment of the show. This is a segment where I share a quote that resonates with me and ties into the theme, and I hope that you'll get something out of and love as much as I do. And today's quote comes from Audre Lorde, and the reason why I chose this particular quote is because I'm sharing tips that will help you care for yourself and heal yourself, so you can go out and help your kids as well, so you can all go out and be better in the world. And the quote is, again, from the late, great Audre Lorde: caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Again, the quote is: caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Now, what I love about that quote is that Audre was talking about radical self-care, self-care that heals you and has you able to go out into the world and do what you need to fight another day. And for marginalized communities who are often not given the access or the resources to be able to care for themselves and even live as well as other parts of society, this is even more important. So when you're embattled every day when you go out into the world just for being in the body you're in or choosing to live the way you do, as much as we say it's a free and democratic society, there are lots of limits for anyone who doesn't toe the line, who isn't doing exactly what our very patriarchal and white supremacist society says you should. When you are living at odds with that, not just to be radical or different, because that's just who you are. And I believe, as I'm sure many of you believe, that we should have the will to do that as long as we're not hurting anybody else or infringing on their right and rights to live the way they want to or their well-being. And when you're at odds with what patriarchy, general society, or dominant culture tells you you should be doing, or the way you're living, there's a lot of stuff you're dealing with that other people have the privilege of not having to deal with. So talking about self-care for as a person who, or persons who are marginalized and dealing with systemic oppression, is so important, because every day can be a battle depending on your class level and your social location, all kinds of things. But for many of us in these spaces, it is a battle, someone you have to go on ready to push back and resist all day long. So when you come home and you have time for yourself, it's not about indulging and pampering yourself. It's about taking care of yourself and healing yourself and making sure you're as strong and as grounded and as centered and soul nourished as you can be, so you can live your life at your best. So that's what she's talking about, and I absolutely love that idea. And I think that when you're able to do that as somebody who is living as part of a marginalized community, of course, it is indeed an act of political warfare because society at large isn't exactly fostering that kind of energy or doing things to foster that kind of energy and ability in your life. So, political warfare, indeed, self care for all of us, particularly marginalized folks who are out there doing battle every day to survive and thrive. And I love that quote for all those reasons. And I hope that you love it too. In fact, I'm going to read one more time before I move on to the next segment. Caring for myself is not self indulgence, it is self preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Now it's time for me to share the 5 great tips I have for you to help your kids deal with any anxiety or concerns they have about the changes they're seeing in the world that have them feeling unnerved or a little off center. And I'm sure they can help you as adults as well to some degree. So here we go. Number 1, you want to calm fears, normalize feelings, and emphasize adaptation. So, of course, kids' maturity levels differ, but you want to focus on maintaining their sense of security, especially for younger children. So if your child is anxious, asking a lot of questions, or finding it hard to fall asleep at night because of their worries, let them know that everything they're feeling is okay and focus extra time on reassuring them, spending time with them to reassure them that regardless of whatever happens in the world, you are with them and you are always going to keep them safe and that they're safe at home. Also, you want to thank them for sharing their feelings. For a lot of us, it's hard. I think these days kids are even better at it because they're learning a bit of that at school and just in society in general. But thank your kids for sharing their feelings, especially your older children who might not be so open or as open as they used to be as kids. And then reassure your kids that they will adapt to any changes they're seeing in the world and heal. And also let them know that feeling upset, confused, overwhelmed are expected emotions that are temporary when you are faced with a situation that you didn't expect, especially if it's one that is scary to you or leaves you feeling off kilter. So that's a temporary feeling, those feelings of overwhelm, confusion, and upset. And then having the ability to unpack those feelings with a trusted adult, their parent or somebody else in their community that they feel close to and safe sharing with is a way to figure out and learn what matters most to them so they can go forward more aligned in their values. The second tip is to be honest and help your kids name their feelings. So you don't just want your kids to talk about their feelings, you want them to be able to name them and name them well. So a good idea for this is to admit if you are also in struggle, be very clear about that and name your feelings and talk about what you're going through. And since we're talking about a political issue, we don't want to denigrate the other side as we do so. We want to set a good example for our children. So name the feelings, get your kids to name and understand their feelings, and then they'll be better able to manage them as well. They may have conflicting feelings that don't quite add up, and you want to guide them through that and also show them that you are dealing with the same things or have in the past so they feel better about it. Now, the third tip I have for you is to reiterate your values and to then find ways to act on them. So if you're dealing with a younger child or children, they generally take on the values that their parents or caregivers express. So you want to reiterate your values as a family. So whether that's unity, respect for others, equality for all that good stuff. Talk about those ideas and ideals with your children, and then demonstrate ways or find ways that you and your family can act on them moving forward. Now, if you're dealing with an older child, like say a teenager who may be developing values of their own that might diverge from yours slightly, the first thing you need to do as a parent is to be tolerant of those values and allow them to express, and then also help them find ways to act on them as they move forward in life. Now, tip 4 is all about teaching your kids empathy and open-mindedness. You want to give your kids the tools to interact with all kinds of people, particularly their peers who may come from different cultures and have different viewpoints as well. You want to model open-mindedness yourself by listening actively and showing empathy and respect when someone else is speaking. And you want to remind your child that it's important to hear other viewpoints because it gives you a chance to learn about and understand other perspectives, whether you disagree with them or not, so you have a better understanding of your world. And the final tip I have for you, tip 5, is create a calm and balanced environment. You want to limit exposure to negative news and social media because that can be overwhelming to anyone, especially kids. And you want to curate the information they see and focus on positive stories. And in a political arena, you want to focus on cooperation in that space. And remind your kids that it's a good idea to take breaks from the news and screen time, and remind yourself too, it's good for adults as well, to focus on other activities that bring joy, like spending time with family or engaging and hobbies or going outside in nature. So those are all good things you can do as well. There you have it, my 5 tips that you can use to help your kids deal with the stress and anxiety of all that's going on in the world right now, especially if they are asking a lot of questions or showing up in ways that make you recognize that they're having a hard time with what's going on and feeling very anxious. So you can help ground them by using these tips. But before I close this out, I want to share some tips that I've been using to help ground myself over the last few weeks that I haven't already mentioned in my list of tips for children. So for me, number one is practicing mindfulness. Now, every single morning when I get up, I do meditation anywhere from as short as 5 minutes if I don't have much time to as long as 20 or 30 minutes to make sure I start my day by turning inward, and it really grounds me. And when I don't do it, I feel off entirely. My day just doesn't go as well for me. I feel a little frenetic. So that is something that helps to ground me. And if you want more tips and ideas around how to create more infuse more mindfulness into your days and your children's days, be sure to go back and check out episode 5 of season 2 of this podcast, where I interviewed Erica Giddens, a mindfulness practitioner who is wonderful. Now, the second thing I've done over the last few weeks in processing my feelings around the US election and a host of other things is lean into my friendship circle, lean on my community. And I know a lot of people tend to turn inward when they're dealing with something hard, and I'm sure that works in some moments because maybe not everything you want to share, but I think letting people know, even if you don't want to share the exact thing that's on your mind, that you're having a hard time, so they can show up and rally for you and wave their palm humps in the air for you and help you feel better or just spend time with you, is so important. So for yourself and as adults, and maybe for your kids even, tap into your community and make sure you tell them, at least if only in part, a little bit about what's going on with you. If you want to say, I'm feeling anxious and nervous, it'd be great to spend time with you. I know my friends do that for me, and I'm hoping that all of you have those kind of supports as well, because it is great. And the final thing I will mention is give yourself compassion. Self compassion is so important, and when you're having a hard time, it's easy to beat yourself up and say you're failing or not doing well, and that isn't cool. So be sure to give yourself self compassion and know that if you are struggling, as a parent, even watching your kids struggle and not feeling like you know what to do, make sure you're giving yourself compassion and knowing that this too shall pass and you'll get through it. And be gentle with yourselves. Know that you can take it one day at a time, and with each passing day, incremental steps, you can get through the problem. But just don't beat yourself up for not going fast enough, or for not healing fast enough, for not feeling better fast enough. Everybody has their own pace for dealing with issues and problems, and it's okay if you're going slower than the next person beside you. In fact, comparison is a thief of all joy, so I don't recommend it. But yes, self-compassion, and as you take care of you and lean into doing what you can to feel better, will also be quite helpful, because I know it's been helpful for me. And on that note, we're at the end of today's show. I'm leaving with 5 tips you can use to help support your kids with any type of anxiety, but especially if you have kids at home who are asking questions about recent turns of event that they feel helpless or very confused about. And also 3 tips from my arsenal that I use to help ground and center myself when I'm going through it. And I hope that you found something useful in what I shared today, and that it will help you and your family in all kinds of awesome ways. All right, till next time, please take care of you, be well, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Till then, take care. Bye.